news. You heard the organic farmer Sumati talk at the beginning of the show. She heads the oil producers group in her village. They produce organically grown seeds such as sesame and coconut.
Isn't the Green Revolution a neat thing? My gosh, this is WRWK, LPFM, Midlothian, Virginia, where neat things are brought to the surface to be studied, and the crap, we let it sink down into the sewer where it belongs. Anyway, it is time right now for finding our fit because desperately need to find our fit. It's all present. I can agree. So, well, that's it for me. You can unmute yourself, Susanna and Omega, and you take over, please. Otherwise, I'll just keep rambling on.
I like to hear you ramble, Ron, and thanks for the introduction and reminding us this is about letting the stinky stuff sink down. That's what finding our fit is all about. We're here to find our fit, find our place in our crazy and beautiful world, and sometimes that crazy part's pretty stinky. But in doing so, we will enrich our world and create a brighter future for everyone and everything, especially Earth. I'm also the founder and executive director of the Foundation for Family and Community Healing. The foundation's mission is also to help everyone find their fit through relationship skill education. And you can check us out after the show at healingedu.org. As you may know, we do this program to help us make sense of this crazy, beautiful world we live in so that we can choose for it to feel more beautiful than crazy. That's a choice we make every day, every minute of the day. Even though sometimes we might choose to focus on the crazy things in our lives and forget that the other side, there's always the other side, and we can create beauty and healing. And we like to do that on Finding Our Fit, focusing on the beautiful side of the challenges that we face every day, where we can learn and grow, become wiser, more resilient, and adopt a healthier relationship with everybody and everything. Challenge and beauty and learning go hand in hand. So why not choose to flip the coin or view the yin to the yang and enjoy the benefits of that beauty, growth, and wisdom? It's something we choose every minute of every day. Today, I am so glad to be back after a break from Finding Our Fit. We took a couple weeks off. It was a busy and wonderful month, and we had some terrific events going on the last couple weeks where it was just so joyful to get together in person again in this beautiful weather. And so I am so grateful to be able to do that. I'm also just so glad to be back with you today, and we're going to be experimenting with a little bit of a different format. Maybe some of you tuned in a few weeks ago where it was Ron and I bantering about a topic that I'm really passionate about, which is authentic purpose. And I framed it in the hero's journey, or the Shiro's journey, as I call it. I enjoyed that so much, I decided I wanted to do more of that. And today, I have invited Omega Wilson, the fabulous Dr. Omega, to come back and help me talk with you about energizing yourself by using your strengths. So hi, Omega. Thanks for returning to Finding Our Fit. I'm so glad you were willing to come back and join me and help me share with everybody one of my favorite topics.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm excited for the conversation. I'm really excited.
So before we begin, Omega, remind everybody who you are and what kind of work you do and how they can find you.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm Omega Wilson, former high school principal, former director of high schools for Henrico County. That's how Susanna and I met when I was principal of Hermitage. I was her son's principal, and she was a phenomenal parent and support system for me. Absolutely phenomenal. Be kind to everyone. You never know who you're going to run across later on in life. Currently, well, I founded my consulting business in 2014, educational consulting and leadership development. So currently I work with a lot of school systems throughout the country, helping them take their schools to the next level. I work with a lot of organizations, businesses, churches, helping them with their leadership teams and helping them to, retain I guess, people in the workplace, to be honest with you, and helping them to
which we
enhance
all
their
need
leadership.
right now.
Oh, yeah. Helping them to enhance leadership and improve morale as well. Women in leadership is a huge thing that we focus on as well with my consulting business. So just a little bit about who I am. If you want to, I'm a mentor, John Maxwell certified or Maxwell Leadership certified since we rebranded. Got to get used to saying that. I'm on the John Maxwell team, certified leader, mentor, coach, and speaker. So if you want to contact me, my email address is omega@iscllc.consulting, like Innovative Strategies LLC.consulting. Or you can inbox me here on Facebook. Either way. Just a little bit about me.
Yes, and Dr. Omega is also just a fabulous principal. So of course I just had to stay in touch with her, and it's just been delightful to be on the radio and do other things, and in fact be on our board of the foundation. So
yes.
so thank you, Omega.
Thank you.
So today, I always mention the foundation that I'm part of, but in my prior life, one of my prior work lives is that I, after 20 some years in higher education, I just decided that I really loved leadership and career and professional and personal development. So I went back to school and got a degree in the science of well-being, applied positive psychology, and a bunch of coaching credentials. And I think it might have been the first one I got was to become a Gallup certified StrengthsFinder coach, because I was exposed to StrengthsFinders in a leadership program, and I absolutely just fell in love with it. And have you taken a strengths assessment before, Omega?
Not through Gallup. I have not.
Okay. Well, I just loved it because, as I find most people do, because I don't know about you all, but so much of my life has been about, what's wrong and fixing problems and focusing on fixing your weaknesses and all of that. And frankly, it is just a drain and a drag, and it's depressing and demoralizing when all you think about is what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me. And like when I came across StrengthsFinders, it was just like such a revelation that, oh, it's actually better and healthier, and you're more likely to be successful by focusing on what's right with you and to develop that. And so that absolutely just changed my life. And I become addicted to the work ever since. And the idea is that we all have things that we do naturally well. And they're so natural that we may not actually be aware of them.
Yeah.
And this was also another beautiful thing to me, an epiphany, because all these things that I've done well without thinking about it, I thought, oh, everybody can do this or should be able to do this. And that actually is very unfair to other people because everybody has different strengths. So that was like an eye-opening thing for me. The second thing is that oh gosh, I have these things that I can do that other folks can't do. So this is like a special superpower, like a talent that can set me apart. And I was like, oh gosh. So the flip side of that oversight was also like, oh, this juicy, wonderful opportunity that is so much fun and can be enriching and energizing at the same time.
I love all of that you just stated. All of it is so very important because, Susanna, as you know, and as you just stated, so often do we get in, or people get in the habit of comparing themselves to people.
Yeah.
They wish they were whatever. I don't know. They wish they were bigger. They wish they were smaller. They wish that they were taller. They wish they were shorter. They wish they were smarter or could do whatever it is that the other person could do. But I love that you talked about the importance of operating in your gift, if you will, operating in your strength. And I believe that when we really hone in on our strength, which is our skill set, when we really, really, really begin to just honor the fact and give ourselves grace, honor the fact that we are stronger in so many areas than we possibly are weak. I think all the weakness will end up going away, or we will end up fixing the weakness, I guess I should say. But I love that you stated, we all have different strengths. And like I said a few minutes ago, so many times we compare, but celebrate the great part about yourself. Celebrate your strengths. There's something unique within each and every one of us. We do have superpowers. And when we begin to acknowledge that, I believe that we'll be so much better off, as opposed to realizing that, yeah, we're all going to have bad days. We're all going to have different days, but celebrate your strengths and know that you can push through those hard times or whatever it may be. You can push through it so that you can be successful, and it'll make you feel a lot better about yourself as well.
Well, yeah. And I think that's probably why, I've sort of become, I guess addicted is a strong word, but I'm just really passionate about this self-discovery, because, when I was always looking at myself in a negative light, all you find are negative things. But if you just go on a treasure hunt for all the ways that you have talent, then it's fun to do that. And, we're talking about strengths assessment, like the Gallup Strengths Finders, or there's another one called the VIA. It stands for Values in Action. It's another strengths assessment. But there's all kinds of other personality assessments like Myers-Briggs, and there's 13 different types of intelligences, however you want to count them. And there's just all kinds of personality assessments where we, instead of being unaware or ignorant of all the treasures within, that we could actually discover them, and we could enjoy them and celebrate them, and see how they are also in other people in such a beautiful way, instead of always expecting we ought to all be the same.
Yeah. And we can't all be the same. And I think one thing I want to really express is the fact that we have not given ourselves a lot of grace during this pandemic. And even now, we're still somewhat in the pandemic, however you want to phrase it. I don't know. But a lot of people have been through a lot of trauma, and you've had to have some type of strength. There had to be some type of uniqueness within you that helped you to make it to today, if you will. We may not have everything that we want every single day, all of the time, and we may have a few obstacles and hindrances that will come our way. But like I said, celebrate your strengths and realize, hey, I made it through this thing, whatever it may be. And it doesn't have to always be something dealing with the leadership. It doesn't have to be always something dealing with your job or your career. It could just mean making it through the day. A lot of times people don't realize the amount of stress and pressure that they're under. And I have to break that down as a consultant. Sometimes I have to break that down with my clients and say, hey, listen, let me tell you, any one thing that you have gone through could wipe the next person out. You need to realize, and like I keep saying, celebrate yourself over that. Don't take that lightly. Don't make it a small win. That's no small feat at all. It's huge that you have overcome, and we all have overcome some trauma here within the last few years and beyond, to be honest with you, or before now.
Right. So what you're saying is not just your strengths, like your personal qualities, but just your accomplishments, even if they might seem small to you, that they actually, especially cumulatively, are huge, and that giving ourselves that time to be aware and to acknowledge and to celebrate, and to give ourselves a pat on the back for what we do are able to accomplish, and instead of always just glass half empty, so we take a glass half full approach, and actually science also shows that you are just more likely to be successful if you do that. So there's so many good reasons for it, including just feeling better and having better health and success and a better life by giving this to ourselves.
And you can't get caught in the, as my parents used to say, the rigmarole of the negativity of believing that the glass is half empty. There's a lot of negative things going on right now in the world, in our lives, but you can't focus on that. Yeah, you can't always ignore it, But like I said, look at the positive things, that are going on in your own life. And we take some of those things for granted sometimes, even
Yeah.
that we have our five senses, or however many senses that you very well may have, even that you're in your right mind, and then that's not to sound, funny or be facetious or anything with it. But I mean, like, seriously, a lot of things the smallest thing can wipe somebody out right now, mentally.
Yeah.
And I don't say that loosely, because mental health is serious. It is very, very serious. I've seen some different cases, been around some people with some very interesting situations. And I'm just thankful, that me and my friends and my family and my tribe, if you will, we're still above ground, to be honest with you.
Well, that's no small feat these days.
Mm-mm.
So this is WRWK 93.9 FM. This is Finding Our Fit, and I'm Susanna Calvert here with Omega Wilson, and we're talking about energizing yourself using your strengths. And we would love to hear from you listeners. If you want, you can give us a buzz at 804-464-1089, or if you're on Facebook, pop something in the chat. We would love to hear your thoughts, opinions, or your own stories. Yeah, there's so much to talk about here. I want to go back specifically to this idea of knowing and understanding your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about these two assessments. One is the Gallup's from the Gallup organization called the Clifton Strengths Finders, and the other is the VIA assessment. It stands for Values in Action. They're a self-assessment. The VIA is free, so there is no reason for anyone to not do it. It's you go to viainstitute.org. The Gallup instrument costs either $19.99, and you would get your top 5 strengths, and for $49.99 you would get all 34. Mm-hmm. The VIA has 24 strengths. And the Gallup, I mean, there's some overlap between the two in terms of the strengths that they are measuring and identifying. Both instruments are really very highly studied and well validated. And the Gallup instrument has got a little bit more of a, is a little bit more focused on sort of the work related skills, what helps you be successful at work, whereas the VIA have a little bit more of the social and emotional. But again, what I think is really valuable is that by taking the assessment, it brings to light for each of us the things that we do naturally well that we tend to take for granted.
Yes.
And Ron, so if you're on Facebook, you could click on the link for the list of the VIA strengths, or also the one for the Gallup strengths. And you can see that there's just really a diversity of types of strengths. And VIA categorizes them into, I think, six groups, including wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Gallup instrument groups them into executing, influencing, relationship building, and and analytical, or executive functions. I think that's what it's called. And so they're really great because, again, you can get a sense of what you do naturally well, and also what others in your life, what their strengths are, so that we don't have to take their strengths for granted either. And the idea, and this has been very highly studied in the positive psychology field, Omega, that that one of the pillars of creating well-being or having a good life has to do with engagement, and using your strengths is one of the main ways that we can build engagement in our life. So it's really, strengths work is really a pillar of our well-being. It has also been shown to be positively correlated with that well-being, and especially the VIA specifically. Research shows that if you just take the VIA assessment, you are 9 times as likely to thrive than somebody who hasn't. And if you use your VIA strengths, then you're 18 times as likely to thrive.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
And that's a free test.
Wow.
Yeah. So there really is no reason why everybody shouldn't just go take the VIA assessment and then even try to use it in their life. And you would love this as an educator, Omega, because there's been a growing body of work where they integrate strengths work into K-12 curricula, and they find so many correlations with academic achievement and student success and improved behavior and all of that. And it's really beautiful.
Yes, because a lot of it, Susanna, is, I don't want to say simply, but simply believing in people and pulling out the greatness in them. A lot of times we don't even know what our strengths are. You know, I work with people constantly and I'm like, you're so good at, or do you not realize that this is amazing and that you do this and that you do that? And they're like, really? And I'm like, what? Yes, you talked about relationship building a few minutes ago, and people take that for granted. A lot of people take that for granted, and that is a strong suit right there for many people. You know, and that's no knock on anybody. We're not here to bash anybody or say anything negative about anyone. But if you can build relationships while you're in leadership or just in life in general, that goes a long way. Building relationships with people, but again, helping people to find their own strengths and their greatness, pulling it out of them. I love doing that. I love doing that. I always say, connect with a mentor or a coach, someone who can really push you and lift you to the next level, because people don't know how great they are. They're so used to comparing themselves to other people. They're so used to being torn down. They're so used to being told that they're not great or they're not good enough or they're not worthy. Shame on them, because you are. You know, we're all worthy. We're all unique. We all have some type of superpower that we take for granted that makes us excellent and amazing, to be honest with you.
And the funny thing is that I think people who say those critical things mean well, but what they're really doing is they're deflating, they're discouraging, and really standing in the way of people's success.
Right.
And you know, and you're such a great example of the positive, you know, what the impact of the positive can be with your positive energy, and you're so encouraging, and you see the strengths in people, and you believe in people, you see the best in them, and your students and the teachers that work for you excuse me, just did so well as a result. So Omega, can you give us an example of a change you've seen in somebody by pointing out, helping them with their self-awareness of how unique and talented they are, like what a before and after would look like? And also, if you had a strength or a quality in yourself.
I'm not gone.
Okay. If you had a strength or a quality in yourself that you didn't know about, that somebody pointed out in you, and how that might have impacted you.
Oh, that was amazing. So I do this every day almost. This is what I do as an educational consultant and life coach, leadership development coach. Sorry, I had to take my dog out. He started whining. But so many times people don't know. I work really, really closely with aspiring administrators to help them go to the next level of their career. And they don't know that they're good enough. They're like, I don't think that I can do this. I don't have this. I haven't done that. And I always tell them, you're never going to be absolutely 100% ready. You can prepare and get ready, but you're never going to be 100% ready. And I like to tell them, let's talk about what it is that you're doing, what you've done, and what you want to do. And when we really sit down and do that, and I have them to assess themselves as a leader or as a person, they begin to just light up, and they see how amazing they really are. They see their strengths of communication, of building relationships with people, of being able to, whatever it may be, public speaking or whatever, or just the fact that they can teach or that they can lead. Everybody can't do whatever. And I always tell people, celebrate those things, whatever it is that you're doing. You're unique and you can do something different. So a story about me, yeah. And I'm so passionate about that, what I just explained, Susanna, because I always knew that I was going to be impactful or positively impact others. I just did not know how. So a lot of people think, I'm going to tell you all a story time. A lot of people think that I went to college and I had it all together when I came out. I did not. I didn't even know if I wanted
No way.
I didn't even know if I wanted to go to college. I'm not kidding you. I didn't even know. I'm like, maybe I'll go to the armed forces or something. I told my parents that. They were like, I come from a family of educators and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I graduated college and I had to move back home to Farmville, Virginia. I had to move back to Farmville, Prince Edward County. And I kind of like snuck into education because a family friend called my mother and said, we need a long-term substitute at our middle school. You think your daughter would want to do it? I went kicking and screaming. I was a secretary, no shame or shade on secretaries, because you take them out of buildings, whatever building it will be, it won't operate. I know the secretary, my secretary ran the building for me. She knew. But somebody kind of like pushed me into education. From being a long-term substitute, I then became an assistant principal, or teacher rather, then went into being an assistant principal because one of the assistant principals in the copy room at Hermitage High School when I was teaching, she said, I think that you should go into administration. And I'm like, administration? I don't think I want to do that. She was like, do it. Trust me. We can help you. And I'm saying to myself, good Lord, I don't know if I want to do that. And then when I became an assistant principal for 3 years, during that time, someone told me apply for the middle school principalship at Mount Vernon Middle School, which at that time was one of 2 alternative middle schools in Henrico County. It doesn't exist anymore. That one doesn't. I got that position. Then I was kind of voluntold. I was told to come back home to be the principal of Hermitage High School, which was the best job that I ever had in my life. But let me pause right there. I did not know that I was going to be an educator. I didn't know I was going to be an administrator. After we did great things at Hermitage, I was kind of voluntold to become the director of high schools. And I went kicking, screaming, and crying. And you can imagine why. I loved what we had. That was my best job that I've ever had in my entire life, simply because of what we created, the culture and the climate that we created together with all stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, faculty, staff, the community members. We created something very, very unique there. It wasn't me at the top. It was all of us growing together. So we created that. And then the former superintendent of Henrico tapped me and he was like, I need you to come work with me to be my vice president of operations for a dropout recovery program. I say all of that to say, I did not know I wanted to do any of that. I didn't know my own greatness. All I was doing was working with people who really cared. I had a group of people around me who cared and helped us to achieve and accomplish our goals, be it when I was a teacher or when I was an administrator or vice president, and in this position as CEO and founder now. It's just important for you, Susanna, to know you may not know your own greatness. You very well may not know your strengths. You may not know how impactful you are to someone. But if someone takes time out of their day to tap you, compliment you, and suggest, now, of course, that person should have a proven track record. If that person takes time out to suggest that you go to a higher level or that you do something that's going to be impactful, walk in it. I always tell people, walk in your destiny and don't question it. If it's meant to be, it's going to happen. But sometimes you just don't know. So that's my story. That's my song where I didn't know. I just did not know. And I think I turned out all right because I had a group of people around me, and I still do have a group of mentors and coaches who show me the way. They've created the blueprint and all I have to do is follow it. They made it easy for me, to be honest with you.
So we're WRWK 93.9 FM. This is Finding Our Fit. I'm Susanna Calvert, having a great time here with Omega Wilson. We're talking about energizing yourself through your strengths. And we would love to hear from you listeners. If you'd like to have a question or a comment or want to tell us your own story about using your strengths or energizing yourself or others, we'd love to hear from you. The number is 804-464-1089. Or if you're on Facebook, then you can pop something in the chat. Well, Omega, I mean, I think your story is really great because I think not only does it remind us to be open to feedback, especially from wise and more experienced folks who we trust and look up to. And it also reminds us to encourage those around us. And when we see potential and exceptionalism in other people, that we share it with them. And to encourage people who might just be offering criticism as a way of being helpful, to know that that is actually not helpful. Or if there needs to be something to be said, to say it in the kindest way possible. And I'm going to just pause and say, I just hear a lot of strengths in your story, Omega. So I'm going to do a little strength spotting, what's called strength spotting with you. So there are many, many strengths, but from the Gallup list, this domain of executing and relationship building, obviously you're a hard worker and you've gotten a lot done, and you built teams and you encouraged and supported the excellence and growth of people around you. And those are some really great strengths that came out in your story. And some other ones that I heard from the VIA list have to do with the domain of courage. Like that just took a lot of bravery and perseverance for you to just keep climbing up that path. You have so much zest as well, like you're so enthusiastic. And some of the strengths of humanity I really love, like you have the strength of capacity to love and be loved, because your love and affection for your community was just so evident in how you went about your business. Did your work.
Thank you.
But you know about all that about yourself. But if I was talking to a 20-year-old Omega, that might be news to her.
That would be news to her. It would be news.
And just imagine what a difference that could make in the life of a young person, because it has, as evidenced by your story. Well, I do want to slightly switch gears a little bit, because we've been talking about strengths and glass half full, and I don't want people to think that we are taking a Pollyanna approach to this, that we would just ignore any of our challenges or areas for growth, is what I call them. And that's actually been a criticism in this discipline of the strengths movement, because they'd say, well, you can't just ignore your weaknesses. And I hate hearing that complaint, because the movement and the work is not about ignoring weaknesses. It's really about using your strengths to find pathways to address those so-called weaknesses. Because if we have our list of 34 strengths or 24 strengths, something has to be at the bottom. I mean, nobody gets a list that has 34 number one strengths.
Right.
So we all have something at the bottom. And the idea is not to ignore what's at the bottom. The idea is to go, gosh, I'm really low in deliberative. But I'm really high in strategic thinking and input. And so what I could do is go, well, I have this project. I tend to rush to decisions. So what I think I'll do is I'll make a work plan for myself. And in it, I'm going to include, do research on X, Y, and Z, discuss this with Omega, rethink my strategy, take it to, my friend who's really good at such and such. And that I can create a plan for myself that can make me act deliberative without actually becoming deliberative.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm honoring my authenticity. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
become someone I'm not, while
Mm-hmm.
also not ignoring my so-called weaknesses, or
Mm-hmm.
as Gallup likes to use the term, lesser strengths.
Oh
So
yeah.
they're the
Yeah.
ones on the
Yeah.
bottom of my list.
Mm-hmm.
And so so really, and even our top strengths, Omega, like some of the things that people might love me for, are also the things that people will get frustrated with me about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if I'm just like using strategy too much, that means I'm like always thinking and asking questions, but I may
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily thinking about my relationship or what impact this discussion might be having on the person I'm
Mm-hmm.
with.
Mm-hmm.
So that great strength can also get in my way sometimes. So another opportunity, or another, it's really kind of a weakness, if you want to call it that, but an opportunity to optimize my strengths and my
Yeah.
efficacy is to also make sure I'm balancing the ones that I'm really strong in.
Mm-hmm. That's huge that you use that word, because I'll be 100% transparent, and you've seen me in action. And a lot of people haven't. I told somebody the other day, a friend of mine, I said, you haven't seen me in action. You've only seen one side of me, but you've seen me in action. And I'll be honest with you and transparent. That's one of my areas of where I'm trying to grow and improve, which is balance. I did not have a balance when I was at Hermitage, nor when I was director, nor kind of like sort of a little bit when I was vice president. But since this pandemic, I have learned, and even more so within the last year, I have learned to implement more balance and more self-care, because a lot of people know me as to know my strengths, but that is a very, very, I'm going to use the word weak area for me. I'm a workaholic. And sometimes I don't know when to slow down.
Yeah.
I don't know when to ease up or stop, but my body will tell me. And you don't want to get to the place where you crash and burn, and because it's not healthy, number one. And number two, that's not what you deserve, so I think
Right.
it's very, very important. You don't have to feed your weaknesses. I'm going to call them weaknesses because that is a weakness for me. It's an area of growth, or an area where I need to improve in. I've done better than what I did when I was at Hermitage, but sometimes our family has to say, can you just rest? Can you just keep still? Can you just whatever? But my family's the one who got me to this point. I get it from my dad, really. He's a
You can tell them
workaholic.
it was their fault.
Huh?
You can tell them it was their fault for getting you into
That's their
it.
fault. It was their fault. And they gave it to me and my two sisters. All three of us are just alike. My mother always talks about, I'll just be glad when you all just really retire. I mean, I retired from the public school system, but people are like, did you really retire? Are you kidding me? What in the world are you doing? But I'm
I
just a
know.
servant leader. I believe in helping so many people, and not to get spiritual or whatever, but I told God this year that every single gift that he and talent that he has blessed me with, I'm going to use it this year, not to highlight and edify myself, but to help others. I know that I have many gifts, and I have a lot that people can use, and I want to share that. But in doing that, I've got to be careful, and I've got to balance, my personal life and work as well. I've got to take time for me, basically, which I'm doing a lot better with.
Right. So maybe a little more temperance is needed for
A little bit
you,
more temperance. Yes.
Omega. But like one of the strengths that you're just talking about is under the executing strengths is called achiever,
Yeah.
and achievers just love to check things off their to-do list, and rack up
That's
like all the stuff I've done,
yeah.
and it's a glorious strength, and it's also very, very easy for it to, as we say in the strengths world, get into the basement,
Yeah.
because it could
Yeah.
just mean that you just like are working all the time and not taking care of yourself, or maybe spending enough time in your relationships, and every strength is like that. It has sort of this shadow side where it's an opportunity for us to find that optimum application. And it's also called practical wisdom. So this is like an Aristotelian. It's a philosophy from Aristotle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That practical wisdom is knowing how to use our strengths or behave in a given situation at a given
Mm-hmm.
time point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lifelong pursuit. Like, nobody ever gets to say, okay, I'm all done learning and growing. I mean, I guess some of us kind of give up, can give up in certain areas of our life, but the more we really engage in that lifelong growth, the more we are going to be happy and successful and satisfied with our life.
100%.
And even somebody like you who's so like accomplished, like you're also still looking for that growth so that, to have more balance or whatever, be the holistic view of your life. That's really great.
Yeah, I've got to find that balance. I mean, like I said, just going to be transparent. I haven't arrived either way. I haven't arrived successfully. I'm thankful for my accomplishments and everything that God has blessed me with. However, I'm still trying to find that perfect balance, where I'm really implementing self-care on a daily, weekly basis. I do okay, but I want to do better. I've upped my workout game, of course. Thank you, SEAL Team, PT. Shameless plug for SEAL Team, but I've upped my game as far as exercising, because that's huge. Exercising helps me so much. So you got to find something that's going to work for you. I don't work out 7 days a week, but I always tell people who know me know that if Omega, I can tell, people ask me sometimes, did you work out today? And I'm like, no, why? Whatever. But it helps me. It helps me. It calms me. It keeps me pretty level when I don't. It just does something to my mind, keeps my energy up, and it keeps me going when I work out. So you got to find something.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up energy, because the research also shows that if you're doing activities where you're using your top strengths, it tends to be energizing. Whereas if you're using your lesser strengths all day, research shows that you will burn out after 20 hours of work. So you can't get through hump day if you're always focused on your weaknesses. So I think this is also like a really important concept, because as we're making choices in our life, whether they be a career or a job or a particular task, that if it's not in alignment with our authentic talents, we're going to just struggle. We're going to struggle to succeed or even have the energy to get through the task. And one thing that just breaks my heart, Omega, is when somebody is in a role or a job or a program or whatever that is not in alignment with their strengths. And people just go, oh, they're lazy or incompetent. It's like, no, it's just a bad match for them. And then it turns into something personal. Or even this, like the shadow side of our strengths. Somebody might just say, oh, Omega just like can't keep still and blah, blah, like use it as a criticism, as opposed to, well, this is just the downside of a really great upside. And it becomes personal, as opposed to, this idea that we're all just trying to do better and make the best of our gifts and all of that. And so I feel like, when we look at each other and get frustrated with each other, that we can look and see what the gift is that person is bringing, even if especially if it's frustrating us.
I agree 100%. I think that you talked about people becoming frustrated with someone's area of growth or weakness, where they need to improve. And I know we'll be so much better off, Susanna, if we just help each other. Don't criticize, hypothetically. Well, not hypothetically. Don't criticize me because I'm a busy bee, and because I'm a workaholic, and because I don't know how to keep still, and because I have not implemented true balance. Help me. Help me. Don't criticize me. Help me. Show me. Pull me to the side and say, hey, this is what you should do.
Not by being mean either.
Not by being mean, because there's so many meanie weenies in the world right now. There's so many people who are being mean as opposed to helping. I mean, I see some mean people nowadays, and I'm like, just give people grace, not just in the school system, but in life. People are so hard on people, and that's not fair. You don't know what somebody is going through. You don't know what storm or cross someone is carrying, and you have to realize everyone is going through something, or either they just came out of something or they're getting ready to go through something. Just be kind it goes a long, long way when you're kind to people. And you
Yeah,
keep
and
your heart
supportive.
clean. You keep your
Yes,
heart, it's important to keep your heart clean, because just like us, I mean, suppose you had been nasty to me as a parent to an administrator, or suppose I had been nasty to you or Jackson. This would
we
not be
wouldn't be on the
happening.
radio show together 10
We
years
wouldn't be on the
later.
radio show. We wouldn't be on the radio show. It wouldn't be good. We wouldn't be talking about this anyway.
Well, and I think in addition to like being helpful, like focus, like we all have our own places for growth. Like I should focus on my own growth rather than pointing out to somebody else where they should be growing.
We all have areas. We all have room for growth.
We all have areas, and we all have, yes, and that is the thing that we have control over, not somebody else. So we are WRWK 93.9 FM. I'm Susanna Calvert here with Omega Wilson. We're discussing Energize Yourself using your strengths. And we would love to hear from you, listeners. Give us a call at 804-464-1089 or pop something in the Facebook chat. I specifically would love to hear about how a growth in self-awareness around one of your gifts or qualities, how that might have changed your life. Yeah. So we'd love to hear from you. I think this just bringing it back to the other show where I was talking about our purpose and the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. And part of the hero's journey, well, according to Joseph Campbell, it's this transcendent process by which we pursue something greater than ourselves and come back bearing the gift. And oftentimes the hero, the hero or the shiro, if you want to be more gender neutral, sees the challenge as there's an external enemy or a antagonist, but in each case, the shiro eventually discovers that their journey has to be inward for them to be successful in their pursuit. Mm-hmm. And so part of that is that inward journey of growing our self-awareness and taking a loving and honest assessment of who we are and what we're doing and how we're doing it, and just upping our game and discovering that treasure and polishing it and honing it, and in ourselves and in each other. And then when we do that, we can come back bearing the gift, which is the lost wisdom of our generation. And we become a little bigger each time we are willing to journey inwards and into that place of self-discovery and growth. And according to Campbell, it's the story of humanity. It's the tale across time and culture, and it is something that we humans have been striving to do throughout the history of time. And I love the strengths work because it is a framework for that discovery that is so affirming and positive, and helps us really grow into the best version of ourselves.
Oh, yeah. I love it. And I think one of the most important words that you stated a few minutes ago was being honest with ourselves. Because a lot of times we wear a mask. We don't want to reveal the truth about ourselves. We'll go all the way around the mulberry bush to try to dismiss our faults or dismiss our areas of growth. And we will be quick to place judgment on someone else. But if we will just take time to lead ourselves first, as John Maxwell always says, the hardest person to lead is ourselves. And if we will just take time to really assess and identify the areas in which we need improvement in, then we can begin to help other people. Until we do that, we're not really any good for the next person, because that's false living, hypocrisy,
Yes. Well, and then there's also the reverse, because some folks, all they do is criticize themselves.
Right.
That's just as bad.
It's just as bad. It is. It is.
And so we want to be loving with ourselves, kind and forgiving, realizing that we're all perfectly imperfect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Mm.
and that then allows room for that growth, because if we were
Mhm.
already perfect, then there's no room for growth. We would
Exactly.
look like we would look like my house plants,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
look like they're on the edge of death.
Right. Right. Right.
And as opposed to the ones that have those beautiful green shoots and buds, like we always want
Mhm.
to be putting out those green shoots and those buds. And
Mhm.
if we're already perfect, we can't. There's no
Mhm.
room for that.
Mhm.
And you brought up this subject of hypocrisy. That's so true, because we always have room for our own growth. And if we're all we doing are pointing out somebody else's shortcomings, that just makes
Mhm.
us hypocritical.
Mhm. Mhm. I agree with you 100%. And it's easy to do, especially when you don't want to be honest with yourself. You know, it's easy to point the finger or point out the faults in anyone else, but you have to be honest with yourself. And if you're interested in growing, if you're interested in being a better person, to be honest with you, if you're interested in being better tomorrow than what you are today. And that's what I live by. People are like, what do you want to do? What's your next thing? Somebody asked me the other day, what's your next thing? What is the next thing that you want to do? And I said, I want to be better tomorrow than I was today. I want to be more impactful tomorrow than I was today. I want to be more loving tomorrow than I was today. I want to be more helpful than I was today. You know, I just want to be a better person. I just want to treat people right and live a good life.
So, Omega, what would you say to people who are struggling to find that right balance? Maybe they're too overly critical of themselves, or maybe they give themselves too much of a pass and they're focusing too much on other people. How does somebody know if they have the right balance, or how can
It's so
they pursue balance?
It's so funny that you said focusing on other people, because I made a post on my page today about this conversation right here. Sometimes you just have to sit down. You just have to sit down either with yourself and or with someone else and have an honest conversation with yourself and or someone else, so that you can assess yourself and that somebody else can assess you. It's not about us saving the world every single day. We can't do that. We can't do that. And you're going to burn out if you try. I'm a living witness. You're going to burn out if you try to save the world, if you're going to try to help everyone every day and you don't have a balance. And it's going to be a hard crash. I'm a witness. I'm here to let you know again, I'm a witness. That's not the life that you're supposed to lead. And you may say, well, I don't even know how to do that. Inbox me and I'm willing to help you. I'm willing to sit down and have an honest conversation with you about how you can grow and how you can have a better balance, how you can improve in your areas of strengths or weak areas or areas of growth, whatever it may be. Sometimes, Susanna, it takes somebody else to have a conversation with you about it. Because like I said, we're the hardest person to lead. You're the hardest person to lead yourself. I'm the hardest person to lead myself, because we get all these background voices and noises in our head telling us that we can't do it. We might not do it. We shouldn't do it. Maybe we can. Maybe we wouldn't. All of that. But sometimes you just need somebody to shake you real good. Just shake you, give you a good hard shaking after you give yourself a good hard shaking, so that you can, and that person can give you some marching orders, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So having a conversation with somebody you trust.
Yeah, somebody you trust.
I guess another way to do it is you could also talk to the people around you and say something like, what do you think I do really well? And what do you wish I would quit doing or do differently?
Yeah. But that conversation, Susanna, has to be with a trust agent. Those were the people who were around me at Hermitage. I had trusted agents, people who I could trust, people who I could rely on, people who were going to be very, very honest with me. They were going to tell me things that I did not want to hear, but they were in my best interest. You all were very, very honest with me, and I could trust you all. So, not to correct you, but yes, talk to someone who's in your circle, someone who means well for you, because I hate to say this, but I don't hate to say it. You can have somebody in your circle and they very well may not have your best interest at heart. So that person that you're going to sit down and talk with, that needs to be a trusted agent, someone who means well for you and someone who really wants what's best for you. Someone who's going to be honest, not brutally honest always, but somebody who's going to be honest.
Well, or also somebody who will be gloss over things,
Right.
gloss over concerns.
Right.
And so sometimes you don't know who you can really go to like that. And another approach might be to, just ask a lot of people, but like don't take any one answer too seriously.
No.
Like what are the trends?
Yeah.
And and I think questions like that could, invite feedback without inviting, like, don't dump on me. Like, I don't want to be dumped on, but
Yeah.
I would like to get some feedback.
Oh yeah.
I think it's also really interesting to really be thinking about your strengths and how you can use them every day, and where people might start complaining to you. So I think just like listening to the subtle, like the things that people are already always giving us feedback, even if they're not
Mhm.
like saying it. Like,
Mhm.
what is their expression on their face when I do this? Or do
Yeah.
they just like say, "Oh, I got to go," or they don't answer my emails? I mean,
Yeah.
like you can start to notice people's behavior when you are doing certain things, and some of those, and notice what strength might be at play there.
Mhm.
And spending a little time, reflecting and noticing and being present, um, can also give valuable feedback.
Oh yeah, I love that. Being present is huge because a lot of times we're answering, sorry, a lot of times we're answering or listening so that we can answer, so that we can respond, but just be present in the moment. That saves a lot of anxiety too, because like I said, a
Yeah.
lot of times we're just on the heels waiting for somebody to finish and not even enjoying wherever it is that we are or whatever it is that we're doing either.
Yeah. Yeah. And being present also, like with our own feedback,
Yeah.
because like I can go, gee, I want to do better. And then if all I do is just like think about, oh, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough. Well,
Right.
that's not necessarily productive.
Mm-mm.
But I think to go, oh, I want to do better, and then
Mhm.
move on to a solution and a course of
Mhm.
action,
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
is a good balance, because
Mhm.
if you're using it to motivate change, that's the best way to use
Right.
negative feedback for yourself, like my own negative feedback, to
Mhm.
motivate me to create change.
Mhm. I
And I
agree.
know when I'm making change, then maybe I have a healthier balance than if I'm just feeling bad
Oh yeah,
or feeling stuck.
100%. I agree with you. I agree with you.
So we just have a few minutes left, and Omega, I wanted to see if you have any final thoughts or words, and then I also want to just remind everybody that at the Foundation for Family and Community Healing, we have learning modules on this type of
Mm.
thing, and our relationship well-being module, and actually the Happiness 101 module, each have a strengths lesson in them, where I go through the VIA strengths assessment, and walk you through how to become more aware of your strengths and optimize your strengths for your well-being and your engagement and your energy and your life
Mhm.
success. And you can access them using a gift economy. So if you can afford to pay the tuition, please pay it. Or if we want to pay extra, that we'd love that too. But if you can't, pay what you're able. And if that's zero, we would just as much love to have you participate too. So so check that out, so you could continue your strengths development. So in the last 2 minutes, Omega, what do you want to tell folks? And please include a reminder of how folks can find you. Oh, by the way, it's healingedu.org for the strengths modules. So Omega, what do people want? What do you want people to know?
I want people to know that I want you to give yourself a lot more grace and a lot more credit than what we have given ourselves, not just women, but people, period. Um, know that you're doing a lot better than what you think. Whatever it is, you're doing a lot better, I'm sure, than what it is that you think. And just remember, if you're a leader, even if you're not a leader, just lead with love, because everyone is following someone, everyone is leading someone somehow or another in some way. You may not realize that, and you may not understand or know that, but you're leading somebody. Do it gracefully, with dignity, and with love and respect as well. If you want to connect with me as a coach, a mentor, a consultant in any way, be it with your business, your church, your school, or one-to-one mentoring, go ahead and DM me here on Facebook, or you can email me at omega@iscllc.consulting. And I'll be more than welcome to finish this conversation with you. That's
And,
Susanna.
and, she,
Thank you so
and
much.
she will do a great job with you if you reach out to her.
I'll do my best.
You know that that's true. So that's our show for this week. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Dr. Omega, for joining me to talk about strengths. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you for having me, Susanna.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
It's back to you, Ron. Are you there? I'm not hearing Ron. There you are. Well, while we're waiting for Ron to chime in, I'll just do the station identification. We're WRWK 93.9 FM. And hopefully Ron will come on and tell us what's next.